What is up, guys? This is Matt from Midrange. If you want to ever build Jund or Abzan and you couldn't decide, well, here's a video for you. Hope you guys like the intro. We're going to be using MTG Goldfish today to decide whether Jund or Abzan is better for you. I didn't see a lot of YouTube videos about this, so I took it into my hands to make a video about it. It may not be the best, but we're going to give it a shot. So I use MTG Goldfish to look at all my metagaming, look at deck lists of the pros, and really think about what I'm playing and how my sideboards are going to look. The website is really awesome, uploading instant deck tips every day. We're not sponsored, but I seriously recommend you guys check this website out. And if you have any other website that you use for metagaming or Magic whatsoever, I want you guys to comment down below, so Zach and I become better Magic players and we can start growing the community more and more. I hope you guys do that. We're going to get right into it, and we're going to start by getting into some deck list. So first off, we have Jund. Jund is our go-to fair deck in Modern. Everybody wants to play Jund. It's the dream deck of everybody's because it never really falls out of the format unless Eldrazi Winter happens, which I hope it never happens again. Worst time. I didn't play a lot of Modern during that. I just played a lot of drafts. So Jund starts off with our creatures. So we have our go-to 2-drops, most powerful 2-drops in the game probably. Dark Confidant, Scavenging Ooze, Tarmogoyf. Just gets him dead, interacts with our graveyard, gains this life, and gives this card advantage. So then we have our value 4-drops in Huntmaster and Kalitas. Kalitas is really new, but he's really good. He interacts with the graveyard, and he's a 3/4 lifelinker. Really awesome, gives you some zombie tokens. Huntmaster is really in a slower metagame. He's great against other mid-range decks. He can really shine. Bent Eldrazi, he's a good matchup in because they can't blink him. And then we have our 4 Liliana the Veil, best Planeswalker in Modern, threat and removal all in one package for 3 mana. And then we have our spells, which is a mix of hand disruption and removal. So our Inquisitions, our Thoughtseizes, our Lightning Bolts, Abrupt Decays, Terminates, and Kolaghan's Command. The rest is in this list. Usually not run. Kolaghan's Command is just super value. Let's Jund just be the value deck that it really is. So with our lands, we have our Blackleaf Cliffs, which really set this deck up for a good turn 1 play. You can use your hand destruction spells or your Lightning Bolts. Really awesome for Jund. Deck super refined. This card really is great for the mana base. The rest of the mana base is pretty normal for a Modern mana base. Fetch lands, shock lands, with the exception of the 4 Raging Ravines, which are Jund's man land. This really turns into a late game threat. If they don't have anything else on the board, they can just keep attacking with this and they'll eventually win the game with it. The Jund mana base is also weighted towards black because they want to be able to play all their black and green mana spells while they're still in their Blood Moon. That's why we run 2 Swamps and 2 Forests. This allows us to get under the Blood Moon with our Lilianas and our Kalitas, while also being able to play our Abrupt Decays to eventually kill the Blood Moon. Moving on to the sideboard for Jund, super flexible. There are some staples that you're going to want to run, in my opinion. 1 Engineering Explosives, really good against Elves, Infect, anything that's playing a lot of creatures. You're also going to want a Maelstrom Pulse, which is not in this list. That's just a catch-all, contain almost anything in the format. Great card. Fulminator Mage is also really needed because Tron is a terrible matchup for Jund, and Fulminator Mage really helps you out in that aspect. Also good against the Mira because you can take out the Raging Ravines, and any 3-color deck that you're going to want to lock off a color. Overall, Jund, super flexible, great deck if you just want a 50-50 metagame with almost all the decks in the format. So next we have Abzan. Abzan is really similar to Jund, it's just a little more focused on the graveyard and a little more value oriented. So we have Noble Hierarch as a mana rock, taps for green and white, just great mana rock. Abzan needs a little bit more mana than Jund because it is a little bit more expensive. So we have Grim Flare, which is usually a 4/4 for 2 with trample, and also allows us to stack the rest of our deck. Newprint and Eldritch Moon, great card. Scavenging Ooze and Tarmogoyf are great as they are in Jund, and Siege Rhino is an amazing top-end. I like it more than either of the top-ends in Jund because it's just really value-oriented, powerful card. Moving on to the mana base, we have 22 lands, a little bit less than Jund because we are running our 3 Noble Hierarch. We have 4 Blooming Marsh, a new Kaladesh land. Haha, get the pun. You should. This is what our answer is to Blackleaf Cliffs. Not as good because you can't turn 1 Lightning Bolt, and turn 1 Path to Exile is not a play you want to be doing a lot. So we have very similar modern mana base, lots of shock lands, lots of fetch lands, and instead of running Raging Ravine, we have 3 Shambling Vent. Not as good as a man land, but still gains us some life, and because we are Abzan, slow grindy gameplay is okay, and periodically gaining 2 life is okay with us. Moving on to the sideboard, usually we're running a lot of Planeswalkers in the Abzan because you want to really slow down the game, and Planeswalkers are great for this. So Gideon's usually run, and the Noodly on it is also great in Abzan or against Abzan in Jund. Maelstrom Pulse, as I said earlier, for Jund, amazing card, and Abzan also gets access to Stony Silence against Affinity and Tron. Tron is not a great matchup, but if you can get out of Stony Silence, you can shut down their Expedition maps, their Chromatic Stars, and anything along those lines, making it just a little bit more of a better matchup. Also, Engineered Explosives, as I said, with Jund, great catch-all, and then the rest of your sideboard is really flexible. I would run some Planeswalkers, your Stony Silences, and your Maelstrom Pulse and your Engineered Explosives as a start. So Abzan's a little bit slower than Jund, but can really take control of the game more than Jund can. Where Jund is more reactive, Abzan has the creatures to be a little bit more proactive, and has Lingering Souls to generate value against creature decks like Affinity and Infect. So next we're going to just take a quick look through the modern metagame, and I'm going to give you, in my personal opinion, who has the edge in each matchup at the moment. So Dredge is on top. I'm going to give that to Abzan due to the fact that it is Path to Exile. Abzan, I'm going to give that to Abzan. Abzan is better than Jund in the mirror. Jund, I'm going to also give that to Abzan. Abzan has more value and can just take over the game against Jund. Tron, I'm going to give that to Abzan again. Abzan has access to Stony Silence and can take control a little bit more than Jund can. Tron still probably has the edge in both of these matchups. Affinity, I'm going to say it's a toss-up. Abzan is probably better post-board against Affinity, while Jund is better pre-board. Jund has better removal, while Abzan has access to Stony Silence in the sideboard. Death Shadow aggro, I'm going to give that to Jund. Jund has better removal. Death Shadow aggro is just getting down a bunch of creatures. The deck's also going to slow down with the banning of Gitaxian Probe, and shouldn't be seen a lot. Next we have Bantel Drazi. I'm going to really give this one to Abzan, but it's really close, guys. Abzan's removal isn't damage based, while Bantel Drazi's creatures are really big. It's a terrible matchup for either of the decks, and you're probably not going to have a good time. Naya Burn, I'm going to give to Jund. Better removal against smaller creatures, while Abzan probably, if you were tuning against Burn, would have better games post-board because you'd have Leyline of Sanctity, timely reinforcements, better sideboard options. Most decks don't run a lot of stuff against Burn, so I'm going to give the edge to Jund. Infect, I'm going to also give the edge to Jund. Better removal, more removal, and if you can just end of turn, kill all their stuff, you're in a good spot. Amulet Titan has just really popped up as a deck, and if you're not able to interact with their lands or larger creatures, you're not going to have a great time. I'm going to give this one to Abzan because they have Path to Exile to deal with the Primeval Titan. Next we have Grixis Control. Grixis Control is not a great matchup for either of these guys. I'm probably going to give it to Abzan though. Abzan has Grim Flayers and Tarmogoyfs to put on pressure early, and Path to Exile to deal with Taskers in a later game. Lingering Souls can eventually start valuing out your control player. Titan Shift, not a great matchup for either of these decks. Really hard to interact with Primeval Titan or with a bunch of lands on the battlefield and a Valley Cut. Probably going to give it to Abzan because of his Path to Exile to deal with the Titan Shift. So that was just my personal opinion on that. If you guys have any other ideas, just please comment them below. I probably messed up somewhere here. I would love to hear your opinion. So the next time you go to FNM and you see your regulars there, take a note of what they're playing. If you think that Jund's going to be a better matchup because you have the spot removal and you're going to be able to take care of their creatures, go with Jund. If you think Abzan's going to be better against the value control decks and you're going to be able to take out bigger creatures, go with Abzan. In my opinion, if you're looking for long-term investment, Jund is going to be your better bet. Jund has always stayed on top or in the middle of the modern metagame, where Abzan has really fallen out of favor at some points during the metagame. I also recommend testing these decks. Both decks play a little bit differently. Abzan was my personal favorite to test, and I did this through Cockatrice. It's a great place to test. If you guys don't use it, I definitely recommend it. You've seen gameplay of it here, and if you haven't, just look at it. Maybe not the best quality gameplay and commentating on my part, but this thing is great. It's free online Magic. You just have to remember your triggers. And when you're playing paper Magic, you also have to remember your triggers. And I'm going to wrap it up here by talking about Fatal Push and what's this going to do to both the decks. So Fatal Push may make the decks a little bit worse with Grixis Control coming around, and that's probably going to be on top of the metagame. Fatal Push is going to let the Tarmogoyfs and your Scavenging Uses and your Bobs and your Grimflayers die a lot more easily, while I think in either of these two decks, Abzan has the edge because there's a few more flex slots open at 2 now. As you see, that one deck list was running Murderous Cut. This could definitely take the place of that. You could run less Path to Exiles and more Fatal Pushes to not give them the land if your metagame is a little bit faster. If it's not, definitely stick on the 3 to 4 Path to Exiles. Jund really doesn't have a lot of places for this, and if you guys are thinking of any deck list for Jund with this Fatal Push in it, I really want to see them. So comment that down below. So if you guys like this one, leave a like, comment down below. I really want to hear your opinion on Abzan or Jund, what deck you're going to be working towards in the recent years if you want to ever build one of these decks, and why, and tell me a little bit about your local metagame. See you in the next one, guys.